welcome everybody this evening to our Seeds Leadership Training Session conference call. And before we get started, I'd like to make a few comments about kind of how we got. As most of you know, actually Ron Spence actually introduced me to Jason Whitney back in actually November of 2016. And of course the purpose of our meeting initially was about essential oils. And what was exciting is what I heard was, in talking to Jason, was what he was doing with the naturopathic doctors and medical clinics. And actually this is what I have been looking for about 20 years. And if you would kind of allow me to kind of explain why I became really excited and interested in what Jason was doing. Actually, I have quite a background. I do have a BS degree in agronomy from Iowa State and a biochemistry degree from Kansas State University. So I have a good chemical and agronomic background of plants and chemicals. And actually, farm chemicals were, as you may or may not know, was introduced to the general public in the 1950s. A chemical company at the and initially there was no safety precautions whatsoever. I mean, it was just a shame what was going on. The farmers were handling the 2,4-D and DDT and all the farm chemicals with their hands, and I was very much aware of the fact that the chemicals were impregnating the crops that were growing, corn, soybeans, and wheat, and all the various crops. And during that period of time, many farmers were actually exposed to the chemicals. In fact, my own father received Parkinson's disease from handling the Thimet chemical, and so I knew that this was a serious problem. So in the 1970s, I bought my own business and was self-employed for approximately 20 years and sold the business in the 1990s. And during that time, I observed that many people were experiencing really serious health problems. And I knew why this was happening. And after I sold my business, I started to pursue numerous health companies to overcome many health problems that many were experiencing. And but what happened, none of the companies actually had a program that would allow the body to reject the chemicals that the people were consuming, and all they did was mask the problems. And as we all know, we hear all the ads every night on Aleve, Tylenol, and all the prescription drugs, and I just was so frustrated. But when I heard what Jason was doing with the naturopathic doctors, I knew this was what I had been seeking for about 20 years. And I knew we had to make this same program available to the general public because there's nothing out there like what we're doing. And so the challenge was to convince Jason to make this same program available to the general public. And this wasn't easy, believe me. But we finally succeeded in actually December of 2016. And we, as you all know, we began a pre-launch program in January of 2017. Now, we didn't have even the name of the company. We didn't have any brochures. We didn't have a website. We didn't have anything. But what I did have is about 30, 40 really loyal individuals that trusted me for some reason. And I started to market the program to three blade products to those individuals. And believe me, we've had unbelievable, numerous positive testimonies, and you've heard some of the testimonies, thank goodness. And we've been in the pre-launch program, as most of you know, since January of this year, and we pray that this will soon be over. And the website is now up, now functional, and I just heard tonight that brochures are now available, will be sent out very, very soon. And we're ready to launch the Tree Believe program. And this is exciting. Now, tonight we're going to share the SEEDS program that Jason assembled for the naturopathic doctors, as I understand it, to assist them in ensuring this nutritional diet food program to their clients. And I just feel that folks are on the ground floor of the greatest opportunity that I've ever witnessed. So anyway, Jason, it's all yours. Come and share with us the SEEDS program of the Tree Believe SEED program. Jason Whitney, CEO of Tree Believe. Jason, it's all yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Merv doesn't give himself enough credit. He can be a very persuasive individual, as some of you may know, and making available the program that we've been using for 9 years with medical doctors and physicians, and then making it available to the general public is more work and involves more than you may think. You know, it's not just making it available. You have to remember that you've been selling to doctors and hospitals and clinics, and they're a special professional group, and in doing so, they don't want it available just to anybody. And so we had to do some major changes, and thanks to Merv and his persistence and his belief in you, those that were on the ground floor, that they could make it happen. And so we owe him a lot, and thank you very much. Let me, what I want you to do, if you would, is you would have received an email inviting you to tonight's program, but also some documents along with it. Now we sent out two. One is it says the seed selling, and then it says short version underneath it. Hope you've printed that off. That's 15 pages long. And then there was a second email sent with a PDF document, and at the top it says seed selling conversation flowchart, and hopefully you've printed that off as well. I will be showing that second document on the webinar so that you can follow along with the paper, the 15-page document that I had you print out. So first I want to just talk about what in the world is this seed selling about? What are we trying to accomplish? And the reality is that everyone loves to buy stuff, but no one likes to be sold. Isn't that true? We all must come to the realization that commerce, everything that is sold around the world, does not move an inch. Nothing gets sold without the actions and activity of a salesperson. And we can hate them. We don't have to like them, but boy, the truth is we can't live without them either. Now, when you go to Amazon, for example, and you buy an item, the salesperson in that case is Amazon. Or it could be a smaller company. It could even be a single person that's working out of their own basement, and they have access to the world, but they're a salesman. Buying your address at your favorite store, or gasoline at a 24-hour depot, or even a package of gum out of a vending machine. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes. From the sale of the actual equipment that makes that pack of gum, or the dress, or that gallon of gas, or the trucking company that ships it to the distribution center. All of those things involved in the process of making it. The software that is made possible so that you could buy that replica of Elvis in the shape of a lamp from Amazon. All of that was made available by the important role of a salesperson. Nothing happens. Nothing gets sold without a salesperson somewhere. Even bombs and missiles and ships. Guess who? There's a salesman behind that selling it to the country military department that bought it. We all love to hate a slimy salesman that won't take no for an answer. Or worse, we say yes just to make a purchase, just to get them off our back. But then once in a while, there's an individual that stands out. And they treat us and talk to us like a friend would. The conversation isn't forced. You can tell, and you don't feel any pressure. After you're finished with the conversation, you can walk away and you reflect on the experience that you just had. It feels different, doesn't it? You feel like you just talked to someone that cares and that they listened to you. It felt good, and it stood out to you. That person, believe it or not, they were a salesperson. They could be in a restaurant. They could be at the counter of your grocery store. It could be a person on the other end of your utility company or your cable or telephone company, and they treated you like a human being. They listened to you. They asked questions, and they, most likely, that they used the principles that made you feel that way of seed selling. Or the same principle that I'm going to talk about tonight. You have to admit, not many of us aspire to be a salesman. As children, you heard titles like fireman and doctor, dancer, or veterinarian. But have you ever heard a child say, I want to be a salesman when I grow up? As children, we all wanted to have the money that a world-class salesman can make. But isn't it true? Never the title. In truth, we all owe a lot to the salesman of the world. I, for example, when I was little, I wanted to be a race car driver during the day, and then at night I was a secret agent. A salesman never crossed my mind. And if it wasn't for the crazy ideas and persistence of a salesman, the world wouldn't have the Chia Pet. Since 1977, when that product first hit the shelves, over 20 million units have been sold of the Chia Pet. Can you think of a more useless gift? Well, 20 million of anything is a lot, and that's quite a salesman that was able to get that out to you and me. Salesmen have been given a bad rap, or at least the individuals have. It's their tactics that are at fault. Now, science has identified that the entire world needs the benefit of the 3B products. And in order to get our 3B products in the hands of those that really need them so badly, a salesperson is required. Any way you shape it, we gotta have a salesperson involved. Now, I assume that you need money. Some of us need more than others. Some of us dream of great wealth, and others consider it a necessary evil. In either case, we all need some of it. If you learn and apply the seed selling principles, I can promise you that you'll be able to talk freely to anyone about 3B, and they will walk away feeling like they just chatted with a friend. I can also promise from personal experience that you can achieve great financial success by simply asking genuine questions and helping people discover what it is that they truly want. Now, if you want great success and you want to keep your friends and even make new ones, tonight let me introduce the principles of seed selling, and I believe you will love it just as hundreds have already. It's the same system that I used to talk a 58-year-old woman that's worked for a doctor for 35 years to sell the products to the patients. The last thing they had in mind were to be salesperson, right? That hasn't changed from when most of us were children. So I want you to look at the sheet. Hopefully you printed off the seed selling conversation flow chart. That's the purple and orange one. And up in the left-hand corner, I want you to look at that image that I created. Now that image is of a farmer, and he has a little bag over his shoulder, and you can see that he's spreading some seeds. Those of you that are not on the webinar and you got that first email, look at that that paper and just imagine a little figure of a salesman. I'm sorry, of a farmer spreading his seed out in his field. The concept and the reason why I call it seed selling is because of not of the seed that the farmer is spreading, but of how the farmer thinks and treats the seed. It's his motive and his drive that really is the core of seed selling. You see, isn't it true that a farmer, doesn't matter what seed they're planting, but they prepare their field, they prepare the soil where it's about to be sown, and then they dig their rows and then they plant their seed. They don't know which seed is going to be fertile. They don't know which one's going to sprout, and they don't know which one's going to bring forth fruit. And of the fruit that does come forth, they don't know which one that's good enough for them to eat, or in the case of a farmer, to sell. You see, the farmer just does the work. The farmer gives the seed what it needs. The farmer does not scream out over the field, hey, listen, I got 3 kids, hungry mouths to feed, and I got bills to pay, electricity bills to satisfy. I need you to produce big, fat, juicy fruit so I can sell it at the market. That's not what he does. What he does is he just does what the seed needs. The seed needs water, needs to be planted in the ground first, then it needs water, it needs sunshine, it needs fertilizer, it needs nutrients, it needs to be taken care of so that pests, insects, and vermin and weeds don't choke it out. He takes care of it. Just like conversation with a friend. You see, the farmer doesn't know which seed's going to bear the fruit. You don't know which person is going to be receptive to your message until you've prepared the soil, you've prepared the situation around you. The seed selling principle is about more of your motive than of tactics. When I first started selling years and years ago, before I became a food scientist, I remember I was quite good at it. I learned the tactics, learned from the very best, read lots of books, listened to little cassette tapes to hone my skills, and I would sit out in the car and I did the same thing. I screamed to myself, I have bills to pay and 3 daughters to feed, and I need to make this sale in order to satisfy my creditors. And my motive was set on my needs. And through the years, I slowly learned that that's not the best way to sell. It applies pressure, not only on my customer, but on me. And it is an undue pressure, and not one that is very exciting or promising when you wake up in the morning and you're about ready to go about your day. So you, as you think about sharing the message of 3 Believe, I know that you have some of the similar feelings. Even if you're already a top-notch salesman, you still have to figure out your approach. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you just didn't have to know any of that? All you had to do is ask questions. Genuine questions, not leading questions like you see in a court of law, right? Simple questions that helps them, meaning the potential customer, discover what it is that they truly want. You see, buyer's remorse, that is, we are second guessing our purchase after we made it, is because of the pressure applied to us in the selling process, right? We later determine that we don't need that item and we feel guilty about it. If it is a genuine purchase, we've made those decisions long before we paid 1 penny towards that item. So let's get into it. Look at your flow chart. I'm going to be outlining the principle. So hopefully you have that there. It says that there's a conversation flow chart. Underneath that, you'll see in orange there are 4 principles. First principle, help solve their problems. Number 2 is what is meant, not what is said, how to listen. Number 3 principle of seed selling is how to ask the right question at the right time. Really, in fact, that's the art of listening. Principle 4 is feeding back what you think you heard. So you're presenting and then committing your product. You see, you do not even talk about the benefits or the wonderful attributes of 3 Believe until in principle 4, because you have to qualify whether this person is even interested in your product that they have a need for it, and you want to be able to genuinely say to the person, you know what, based on what you've told me, I've determined that the product of 3Believe is not going to give you what you want. What if someone simply has in their mind that they want to erase all the gray that's in their hair, the wrinkles on their face? They want to physically look like they did when they were 19 and this person's 85, and they also want to grow a foot taller. Now, they didn't explain that to you, but that's what they have in their mind thinking. Now, we didn't ask them the questions of what their goals were, so we didn't ever know. And at the end, we sell them the product because of our great sales tactics and persuasion, and they have buyer's remorse, and then they never buy from us again. Or they ask us to give us their money back because their expectations were not met, and yet we didn't talk about what their expectations were. So, principle 1, we need to help them solve their problems. So, if you go into the other document, the printed document of the Seed Selling Short version, you'll find that I outline in there, and you'll see it in blue on that paper, in small print, you'll see that there are different types of questions. For those that are following it in the flow chart, it is under section or principle 3, section number 2, understanding stage. So you'll ask these series of questions, one being history questions. A history question is simply, where have you been? What brought you to this point? For example, if you want to come up to someone, there are some role plays in the document that I sent to you, but in real life situation, it would go something like this. You go up to someone, you haven't seen them for a while, or they're a brand new person, and you start out by a history question. That you say to them, at what point would you think that you were the healthiest that you ever were? And they're going to respond, now, a month ago, 15, 20, 30 years ago. It doesn't matter what the answer is. You are just starting to ask them questions what they perceive as their healthiest point. Then they'll go, well, I was healthy till about 3 years ago. Then I started putting on weight. Oh. You ask them another question. Why do you think that you put on weight? I went through menopause, and I had a car accident that made me a lot less mobile. But I'm over that now, and I just haven't been able to put the weight off. You continue to ask the questions to understand what it is that they have identified as their problem. You see, it doesn't matter what you think they need, which takes us back to the first principle, which is help them solve their problems. Really, you're not a salesperson in the seed selling concept. You're really a problem solver. And part of being a problem solver is helping them identify what their problems are. Most of us have never taken the time to write down what our goals are, let alone what we want to achieve. Nor have we identified what our problems are by systematically writing them down and going, okay, why did I get kicked out of my house? Wow, well, we come up with all kinds of excuses. But there's always a systematic chain of events, consequences that happen that led us up to that point. But no one has ever taken the time to really walk us through it. That's exactly what you're doing in seed selling, but you don't need a pre-memorized chart because it's all just questions. Now, it's a great idea if you understand this conversation flow chart that I'm giving you, but it's really very simple. You just ask, you connect with them and makes just casual conversation. In your mind, your motive is not to make a sale. In your mind, your whole motive is, what can I do to identify what they need? Is what I have a good fit for them? Is it going to give them what they think they want? I was told once that there are really 3 points of reality. There's my perception of reality, there's your perception, and then there's actuality. There is what's really happening, really going on. You can say the same thing about an event of what happened, a circumstance, an accident. There's a perspective of one person in the accident, the viewer that was watching the accident, and then actually what happened. And this is one of those cases where it doesn't matter what actually had that person gain the weight or why they have high blood pressure. It's what they believe is the reason why they have high blood pressure. You will never be able to educate them until you understand where they're coming from and what their belief system is. And that's exactly what seed selling is. You see, this seed selling isn't about convincing. It's not about showing them science. It's not about you upping them with critical proof that proves that what you have to say is great and true and accurate. It's really more about what they perceive, because if they're not listening, they'll never ever apply the principles that you know to be true. So, motive. Put them first, right? So then in principle 2, it's about how to listen, right? Now, what is meant, not what is said. Now, this is a good little lesson to circle on your paper. What that means is that unfortunately most of us in the world do not speak very clearly on actually what we feel. We say things that we don't mean. Or we say things that are easily misinterpreted and the other people misunderstand us. And then we say in response, they just don't get me. They don't listen to me. When in reality, much of it is that you did not speak clearly enough for me to be able to understand. You didn't use the precise words of language to best describe how I feel and what I think. Well, one, we can have everybody in the world take education again in clear English, using the right words in the right place. And that can take generations of time and we'll still fail. Or we can help people speak more clearly by asking them qualifying questions. So, let me give you an example. Here, a person comes in and they say, yeah, I want to lose weight. Here's a qualifying question of their precise language. It's not what is what is meant, not what was said. So I would say, now when you say weight, do you mean you want to lose fat? Or do you want to just weight from any source would be okay? They've always come back and say, no, I want to lose water weight. No, I want to lose muscle. They always say fat. But see, I clarified and I understood better what they actually meant, but it wasn't what they said. So continually do that through the process. I want to make more money. Now when you say more money, do you have a number in mind? Yeah, I want to make $50 more a month. Oh, wow. That makes the whole process so much easier to obtain, right? You might be thinking $1,000 because that's the average number that people give you. But this person said $50, right? So always qualify what is meant, not what's being said. So if you go down to principle number 3, what I mean by how to ask the right questions at the right time, that's the art of listening. You don't want to leap in and start giving them the speech of the wonderful products until, again, you've got them emotionally committed. Now, when I say on the paper that the seed selling, the one version that you have is the short version, this is kind of like the elementary level, because I know that most of you will not even read the full document if I do not convince you of the quality of this short version. Now, all of it will be supported by video, and I'm working on it right now. So all this content will be supported by videos that you'll be able to give out to your people that you get involved. So it'll be very effective and congruent way of learning and teaching and selling, right? But for now, you have this paper. which is what I've used all these years, and it works just fine. But first I want to get you in the short version. The long version goes into deep detail. That's as if you just fall in love with the principle of seed selling. And if you do, then you can become a true master at it. In the meantime, I want you to really just start practicing. And really all it is just follow this guide. If you look on the page that I had you print out, you'll go into, let's see, the first one starts on page section 5, titled Seed Selling Dialogue Examples. That's the section that has the little blocks and the blue and yellow highlighted over the names. Linda and Art are the first section. Those are examples of dialogue. Practice it. You don't have to actually practice these questions, but you get the idea. Practice the same concept. So if you do this in a real life situation with your loved one, your children, the people you work with, you'll see that you can be practicing this concept without them even knowing that you're practicing with them. And you'll find out that this seed selling is also a wonderful way to develop a better relationship with your loved one, with your children, with your employer or employees or co-workers, with strangers, to preach the gospel, to argue politics. This principle works in communication with your fellow man. If you practice these principles, I promise you'll be able to communicate much more clearly. And the people will walk away and they'll feel like, that person heard me. I loved what they had to say, when in fact they did most of the talking. So go through, and I'm just going to read through this as example so you know where we're at in the paper. The first question from Linda is, I hate being broke all the time. I wish I had more money. Art responds with, really? How long have you needed more money? Do you see how that's a history question? He's going back into the past to find out how long Linda has been in need of more money. She replies with, well, can we ever have too much money? But ever since my hours were cut back. Now, I want you to look at the first part of that reply from Linda. Well, can we never have too much money? Now, the statement there, wouldn't you agree that so many times when we ask people questions, they really never answer our question? They really just talk about oftentimes something else and didn't answer it. In that example, that's a realized conversation. And so when that ever happens to me, I just smile inside, and then I ask the same question, but I ask it a different way so that the person listening to me doesn't feel patronized. Because they'll pick up on the exact same language. But if I just ask the same question, let me give an example. Let's go back to the first one. Linda says, I hate being broke all the time. I wish I had more money. Art says, really, how long have you needed more money? Another way of saying that in the second time, if Linda says, well, we can never have too much money, Art could come back and say, I know exactly how you feel. Has it been more than 6 months or less? Same type of question, but you use different words. See the point? They're all history-related questions. Let's continue. Art goes on. Well, that's too bad. Did that happen just recently? Now he's talking about her hours being cut back. Linda says, oh, about 3 months ago. At first I was picking up extra hours from some of the other workers, but now there just aren't any hours to pick up. If I don't do something fast, I'm going to be in real trouble. Now, as a seed selling farmer, what you want to do is you want to find out what Linda considers to be real trouble. To you, it might be no trouble at all. To her, it might be cataclysmic. Or she might be exaggerating because she's not using precise language. All right? This is how Art would follow up with these questions. Have you looked at getting another job or maybe some part-time work? Okay? Now, if you follow, or those of you that printed off the conversation flow chart, follow down and look what just happened. A normal conversation. You're in section 2, understanding stage, that's the purple. Go into the orange where it says problem and need questions. The first one says uncover needs and problems. You see, that is exactly what Art just did in that example. He asked about more specifics. What have you done about it? Now, if Linda sat back and said, oh, I haven't done anything, I just wait for the universe to satisfy my needs. Well, one, you might be able to evaluate that Linda really doesn't see that this being a major problem. If she did, she'd do something more about it, right? Or you could start to determine that it could be a major problem, but Linda is one of those personalities that doesn't seem to do much when she is in a major problem. And there are all those people around, right? They wait too long until it's too critical. All of those points are important to find out when you're asking these questions, right? The goal of your 3 Believe business is not to enroll people. Hopefully you've learned from the topics that or all the webinars and calls that I've given, is your motive should be in helping people overcome the symptoms of metabolic syndrome. That should be your driving force. Now, another critical thing for me and why I made this available is because I wanted people to be able to be financially enriched. That also is a major concern of mine. And so I would like you to have the view of the farmer in how can you help those people satisfy their perceived financial needs, not yours, not by you selling lots of people. You see, there's a difference, isn't there? Your goal is not enrolling 50 people a month. Your goal is finding 50 people that have a need of the symptoms of metabolic syndrome and that have to improve their financial situation as they see it. You see how there's the difference there? You don't want to just sell anybody. So let's go on a little bit and you'll get more of the sense and follow along on the sheet. Linda responds, or Art says, how much do you need each month? Linda says, well, I need more than $10 an hour, which is what a lot of jobs that I've been looking at pay. I was making more than that when I graduated from high school. That's a real conversation. Do you notice how Linda never did say how much she actually needs? She just said how much she can't have per hour. It's got to be more than $10 an hour, but Art never got an answer. So what did he do? He asked more qualifying question. If you look into the type number 2 of the understanding stage, he's moved down now as what does your customer want? Well, in this case, she wants more than $10 an hour. So he asked another qualifying question. Do you need more than $1,500 a month? No, but that would be nice. I need about $1,000 though. Okay, now, really getting into more detail. He's got $1,000, but she would like $1,500. Okay? So Art goes on, what would you like to do? I mean, do you have a dream job? Do you see how he's moving right into the next question? Why do they want it, or what do they want to do? Right? Oh, there have been so many, Linda says. Things I've thought about, but you know, life seems to get in the way. I really like working with people, especially women. But as you know, that doesn't pay very well either. And Art says, have you looked at going back to school? What is he doing when he asks that kind of question? He's qualifying how much thought she's put into it, and he's also eliminating issues. Because if she's going back to school, she's also working a full-time job, and she needs to make extra money, and that extra money is not going to be 3 Believe, then she doesn't have any time left to do anything, right? So he's qualifying these issues to see if 3 Believe is a good fit, but also how committed she is and what her limitations are. Linda says, We've thought about buying what, did I go on the wrong page? Make sure I'm not skipping. Yeah. She responds with, I've thought about buying a franchise before, but couldn't put the money together. Working for ourselves would be nice as long as it didn't consume our whole lives, right? So she didn't answer the school issue. She simply went right to starting their own business, but eliminated a franchise because they didn't have enough money. So as you read through this document, you get the sense that it's not a memorized script. It's really more of you understanding how to ask questions, listening to the answer. Here's the important thing. If you listen to their answer will give you what your next question should be. Do not follow a pre-prescribed script. I got to hurry and answer these 4 questions so I can start talking about 3 believe. When you've ever had an argument with someone, have you ever found yourself wanting or even interrupting that person as you were talking? When we do that, what experts have taught us is that we're not actually actively engaged in listening to the person at all. All we're doing is we're waiting for the opportunity for us to jump in to rebuttal a thought that we had already come up with. So we were thinking about our reply in our mind, conceiving it, crafting it, developing it while they were talking. We cannot do both at the same time, and definitely not very well. So what I'm saying is, don't actually think about a pre-designed direction to go. Listen to their question and then try to really understand what it is they're saying. If you don't understand, then you just go back and you just ask them the same question but use different words. And you can even use this language. I'm sorry, let me ask you this question again for my own understanding. You blame it on yourself. No one likes to feel like they're not doing well at explaining how they feel, right? Blame it on you. Just say, I've had a long day. I'm not as quick as I was this morning. Explain that to me again so I can better understand and get it qualified. As you move through these questions, you'll notice that it goes from into the consequence questions. Now, consequence questions is referring back to Linda's original question. If I don't make some money real fast, I'm going to have some real problems. This is what a consequence question would sound like. Now, you said earlier, Linda, that if you didn't make some money, and I think you said $1,000 a month, really fast, that there'd be some real consequences. That there'd be some real problems, I think is the word that you used. What kind of problems would you have? What? And then just listen. Oh, my husband would get mad at me. Oh, I wouldn't be able to save money for our trip around the world. Or we're going to be evicted from our house. We're going to lose some of our possessions. Whatever the answer is you listen to the reply. And if it came back with, well, a consequence question is, I'm going to be, we're going to have to cut our expenses somewhere. I got to cut back. Like, what? You see, that's another follow-up on a consequence question. If we use psychology, and some of you have studied this in school, you'll see how these questions are not only helping with you understand the consequence, but it's also reinforcing to the person you're talking to, in this case Linda, how important it is to her. So let me do the opposite of that. If any of you have ever been in counseling and you're talking about something that is traumatic in your life, and your dog died, okay, and you love this dog, and your dog was your best friend, and you start crying and bawling uncontrollably about this circumstance and this event, what a good counselor will do will take you out of that situation and bring you back into reality. The very reason why you're crying about it is because you're reliving that experience. Your dog did not just die. It happened 30 years ago. Now we can apply the dog to a job, to a spouse, to a family member, the loss of your right arm. Regardless of what it is, the reason why we cry and remorse over it is because we are reliving the experience as if it happened, and our brain doesn't know the difference. And so our emotions rise to the surface. And that counselor will take us out of that emotion and say, okay, all right, come back out. You're not there anymore. Talk to me about what's happening today. That was a long time ago. Here's a tissue, right? They're more sensitive than that, but you know what I mean. And so when you're asking these consequence questions, you want them to feel the weight of the pain as they feel it. You don't want to make it heavier than it really is. You don't want to blow it out of proportion. Here's blowing it out of proportion. Okay, so if you don't need $1,000, or you don't make an extra $1,000 a month, then you said that you're going to be kicked out of your place. Now, I'm going to guess that if you don't have $1,000, you also don't have $1,000 in savings. And if you don't have it in savings, then you're not going to be able to find a new place to live, because every landlord requires first and last month's payment, right? Or at least a security deposit. And if you don't have that, you're going to be living in the street. And if you're living in the street, you're going to be exposed to all kinds of harsh elements. Do you see how I'm making it more dramatic? Okay, that's not very genuine. You don't need to do that. But what you want to do is have them feel it and create it for themselves, because that's what they're going to ponder and think about after you're gone, because they are the creators and the author of that emotion. If you create it, it's not theirs. It won't stick with them for very long. Let them generate it for themselves. All right? So now you don't have to think about all this while you're talking to somebody. It's just going on in the backgrounds. I'm just explaining to you why it makes good sense and how it's supported by counseling, or the method that many counselors have used. Let me put it that way. So as we move from consequence questions, you're the guide, you're the leader. After you feel that that's adequately fulfilled, then you go into solution questions. The solution question is one that I already touched on in the example of Linda and Art. He asked, have you thought about going back to school? That's a possible solution. Now, delayed benefit, because you got to go through school to get the new job. And then she replied with a franchise opportunity, but then just counted it on her own. Then he goes on, and I haven't read this one. Art says, it's true. Having a life is important. Remember, they were talking about starting a business, but they didn't want the business to consume their whole life. He says it's true. Having a life is important. So it sounds like you'd be willing to put in 5 to 10 hours a week towards a project to generate at least $1,000 in extra income. Does that sound right? Now, all Art did is just took the math of the hours of over $10 an hour, divided into the $1,000 to come up with the hours, right? And you don't even have to do that. You can just say, so it sounds like you'd just be willing to put in enough hours in order to generate $1,000 a month, right? You're qualifying that they understand that. You're not really looking for a commitment from them. You're asking for them to recognize and own that for themselves. And she says, yeah, that would be great. He follows up with, and the downside is if you don't do something, then what happens? All he's doing here is he's just reinforcing the previous consequence questions. And it's just been so hard. It eats me up at night, and I'm afraid that the stress is going to land me in the doctor's office. Okay, now she's revealed a new issue that she's concerned about. It's not just also not being without $1,000 real problem. She's also been thinking about the impact that it's had in stress and in her health. You see how all these things bubble up and reveal themselves all from asking questions. And you've done this type of stuff before. Now all you're doing is consciously asking these questions to an end result, and that is the three belief proposal, the business model, going to be a good fit for Linda? Art goes on, he says, well, based on what you've told me, I'm personally doing something that might be what you're looking for. If you're interested, I'd be happy to share it with you. Now, what happened is Art went back and forth, because real conversations are fluid. You'll see that we went from problems and need questions down to consequence questions, then back up to needs questions, then down to solution questions, back to a consequence, asked more needs questions, and that's the way it works. That's a real conversation. You don't have to follow this chart because it would sound scripted, but that's a very real scenario. And now Art went right to the qualifying question. And the qualifying question is, I have something. You're also doing a presentation. You're moving to the second stage, which is the third transitional stage, right? So you're starting to present the idea. I found something that works for me. Would you be interested in me telling you about it? What you're doing there is you're not just launching in with, well, what I've done is I got a hold of this company called 3Believe, and they have the best product. Let me tell you about this testimony. Whoa. You are coming way, way too soon, because you want Linda to be able to invite you simply to say, yeah, tell me about it. If she comes back and says, in her head, she's been saying, I've been in this conversation for too long. I didn't tell Art that I needed to be at another appointment 10, 15 minutes ago. And if you don't ask for permission to be able to launch into another 10-minute, 15-minute conversation, she's not going to be listening to you anyway, because she's going to be looking at her clock and most likely will interrupt and say, I got to go. Now, all kinds of consequences could come from that. So you ask simply for permission. And it's also a qualifying question. You're really finding out if Linda's interested. If she says, no, I'm not really interested. Oh, all right. Then you can just follow up. Well, if you don't have any solutions to your problem, let me know. Maybe something will come up. I might have a suggestion for you. And then you just wait for that person to come back around, or in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you just revisit them again and say, hey, how's that project coming? I've been thinking about you. You making $1,000 extra a month? Any way I can help? Right? That's what friends do. So in the example here, Linda says, yes, please do. And then all you simply do is use the example as I've outlined. Again, you're just starting over again as you explain it. You're giving personal testimony, you're giving your experience with it, testimonies that you've heard, and that's the way a natural flowing conversation goes. As you get down to a commitment stage, this is what a commitment stage sounds like. You simply rehearse, and this is what it sounds like. Based on what you've told me, or you don't have to use those exact words, use the words that you would say. Based on what I hear you saying, whatever language that is familiar that sounds like you just want to repeat and do a recap. From what I've heard, you need to make $1,000 a month. You have about 7 hours a week to be able to, or 2 hours a day, or whatever the hours are that you can commit to a business. You don't have a lot of money to start the business, but you've identified you have a couple of $100. Am I right so far? Yep. Okay. I might interject. Psychology or counselors have told us that when you're giving a dialogue, except when you're doing a webinar, you only want to talk for about 2 to 3 minutes. Don't go any longer than that before you come back and just check the pulse of the person listening. You've got a lot of stuff to say, a lot longer than 2 or 3 minutes worth. You'll lose them. We can't keep someone's attention that long, no matter how handsome we are, how beautiful, how eloquent we are in our speech. It's just the way the human mind works. So engage them. That's what keeps them involved in the conversation. You do that, they will think that they're controlling the conversation. They won't feel like they're out of touch. and that they're being dragged into this conversation for hours on end. So every 2 to 3 minutes, just reach back in and make sure that they're alive. That's what this would sound like. After you've explained about your personal experience, yeah, I started the program a couple of months ago, and well, I don't know if you knew, but I was on high blood pressure medication and water pill, and I was about 25 pounds heavier, and I'm off my medication. I feel great. I lost the weight, and I'm not done yet, but I'm keep going. Have you ever had that feeling of getting your life back, like you're feeling healthier and you're regenerating youthfulness? Okay, it could be any question. You just get them to engage, right? They'll make a response back, and then you just continue on with your course. And the course is getting them to commit now. And the commit is, you said that you would be willing, you got to make $1,000, you spend some time in it, and if I helped you, if I committed to help you and showed you a program, would you take the time necessary to earn that $1,000 a month? You're not asking them to commit to 3 Believe. You're asking them just to make a commitment. And you could even say that. I'm not asking you to commit to 3 Believe. I'm saying, would you commit 10 hours a week to earning that $1,000 a month, or 15, or whatever the hours? You want to get them to actually commit to solve their own problem. You're not asking them to commit to 3 Believe. This is an important stage for them. They have to commit to their solving their own issue. And you can even verbalize. Again, now I'm not asking you to sign on the bottom line for 3 Believe. I'm just trying to find out, how motivated are you to make $1,000 a month? And then you're just reflecting those questions back to them. If they start him-haw, then you repeat to them what you've heard them say earlier in the conversation, and you just start the process over again. That's seed selling. If you do that, what will happen is one of 2 things. If in the end they say, no, I don't think this is for me, either as a retail customer, as an affiliate, or as a sales rep, neither one of them did they commit to, then you can walk away, and they'll feel like you heard them, you respected them, and they did not feel pressured, because you were talking about them in their life, something they know very, very well. Then if you asked them a question and said, well, I understand and I respect that. If it ever changes, don't hesitate to call me. Do you happen to know someone that is in a similar situation that you are, that might be interested? I promise you from personal experience, that question is much different than you going to somebody and saying, hey, I joined a new company and blah, 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 blah. Are you interested? They say no. Say, well, do you know anybody else that is? The last thing that person's going to do is give you the name and number of one of their friends and have the same treatment that you just barely gave them, which is more of an interrogation or a sales pitch than asking them genuine questions. They'll say yes simply because they know that you'll treat them with respect, and they know that, well, they didn't have what I wanted, but they still are my friend. They still were friendly. That is all the difference in seed selling. I've done that, and I've literally changed my whole position on when I meet people on the street. I'm not afraid to go up to them from 2 years previous and say, you look really familiar. I don't quite remember. Do I look familiar to you? Yeah, you tried to sell me some insurance back years ago. Oh, that's right. Yeah, how have you been? And it's a pleasant conversation, right? It is so much less stress. So we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have more detailed situations on the seed selling, supported by video. Again, I give my personal testimony to the fact that this works wonderfully. Every sales organization I've ever been in and I've used this principle. I've always been in the top 5 of the cells that they do, or that they measure. And this is all I did, this simple little chart. So I put it down on paper, and any of you that have any questions, feel free to send them in to support@3believe.com. And let me bounce it back to Bob, or to my man, Mr. Merv. Are you there, Merv?
I'm still here. Well,
And did I cover everything?
well, everything tonight, but we're going to do the same thing next week.
Well, we've got this recorded, so that's one way that we can do it. But you know me, I'm always here to help whenever I can. I will not ask you a question in spirit of the seed selling conversation flowchart.
I guess is this a continuous program, or you might have more sessions? What I'll get your.
Yeah, what I would envision is until all the videos are completed, that we could go over each section. Each week would be an individual section, because there is a lot of content in each one that I can go into it in a lot more depth, and we could do that and cover several weeks. We could do that. You and I can talk about, and we can design a program. Why don't you? We could get some. That's what I've done when I've trained office staffs.
Okay. We can prepare the videos and kind of go through section by section by section each week.
Right. Okay. Well, good. I hope you all got some good news, some interesting content, and this will all be available and emailed out to you tomorrow, so that you can review it again.
Sounds good. Sounds great.
All right. As usual, I appreciate you, love you, and admire your commitment, and keep up the good work, and just remember, tomorrow's a new day, and yesterday was yesterday. Forget about it. It's in the past.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good. Good call. Good stuff. Thank you. God bless you. Good night, everybody.